Lately, I've noticed something. Everywhere you go, there just seems to be this underlying tension, online or in person. I don't think most of us wake up wanting to be negative and critical, and yet somehow it still just creeps in. Being a peacemaker sounds simple, but in this world, it's actually really hard. And it made me wonder, what kinds of things can we do to actually make peace happen instead? So I started to think about the habits of a peacemaker. What kinds of things do peacemakers do differently in their daily lives than the rest of us do? And one of the first things that I noticed was that peacemakers look for the good. There's some really interesting brain science behind this. What we focus on is what we see. They did a study and tried to see which was more effective, to think more positive thoughts or to stop thinking negative thoughts. And which one do you think was more effective? It was actually to stop thinking negative thoughts. That was way more effective than just trying to think more positive thoughts. And so if you're looking for contention and frustration, you're always going to find it. So peacemakers seem to do something different. They're not ignoring reality. They're just choosing intentionally what to give their focus to. And it reminded me of this story. There was this intern who was in an operating room and they were working on a patient who had gangrene. And the operation was not going very well, and then somebody made a mistake. And the head surgeon got so angry, he actually threw a scalpel, and it landed in the intern's arm. Yes, in his arm, and it was infected with gangrene. Thankfully, he didn't get infected with gangrene, but he said it made him resolve to never respond with anger because of the terrible effects of it. And in a lot of ways, I feel like we're in a similar situation right now. We're surrounded by frustration, outrage, criticism. And if we're not careful, it can infect us too. Just like the gangrene could have infected that intern. So peacemakers are very intentional. They're trying to root out the bad ideas that they have in their mind, to try not to become infected with negative thoughts. And instead, they choose to look for the good. And then I realized something else. Peacemakers choose to react differently. So oftentimes when we encounter something that we don't agree with, it's very easy to get hyped up and to easily get offended. And peacemakers instead choose curiosity over contention. Instead, peacemakers ask, why is this person saying this? What happened in their life that led them to this conclusion? Peacemakers are people who ask a lot more questions. They're really willing to listen, and sometimes it might even change their opinion. And that kind of curiosity really softens things. It allows you to make peace with people online and in your personal life. And the more I think about this, the more it makes me think of the example of Jesus Christ. His was never about winning arguments. He was always trying to love and lift people. He taught that the way that we treat people, especially when it's hard, shows who we really are. But that's not something that comes natural. It's something we have to choose to do. Which led me to think of another thing that peacemakers do is peacemakers create space. By that I mean peacemakers don't necessarily react the second something happens. A lot of times we'll encounter some kind of problem in our life and we always want to just sort it out immediately and try and take care of it and not have to worry about it anymore. But peacemakers are okay with a little bit of ambiguity. They're willing to sit with that discomfort for the sake of peace eventually. They don't rush in with a reaction. They breathe. And a lot of times that allows peace to grow. When you can't control the situation, peacemaking gives you something to do. You can pause, pray, and wait. And that made me think of another way that peacemakers act, is that peacemakers are very present. It's really hard to create peace if your mind is constantly somewhere else. We're so used to scrolling or even just constantly thinking about what's going to happen next, having an anxious brain. And it's very difficult for peace to exist in a space like that. So peacemakers are people who be where they are. I love the idea of removing distraction, looking people in the eye. I'm certainly not perfect at this, but I love thinking about this is how you create peace, is you allow room for this kind of stuff to happen. Because a rushed, frenzied mind can't create peace. And the last thing that brings me to that I've noticed that peacemakers do is that they make intentional time for stillness in their lives. I think we've just taken it as a given nowadays that the second you log in to social media, you're going to see some kind of news or information, something that could inflame you and make you frustrated. But peacemakers opt out of that kind of life. And did you know that it used to be that we would just receive the newspaper once a day and then not think about it again until the next morning when you got the newspaper again? And you can live that kind of life, you just have to choose it intentionally. Peacemakers aren't checking on things every time. They're not allowing themselves to get frustrated and angry 24/7, just because that's the speed of the news. If you're not careful, you could spend your entire day reacting to things that you see online. And that's going to make it very difficult for you to create peace in your own heart and in your family. So peacemakers protect their peace, and it makes it possible for them to have peace to give to others. So even though maybe our world isn't currently set up to create peace anymore, I have realized that there's things we can do to make peace possible in our lives, making small, intentional choices that will lead us more to peace. Looking for the good, staying curious as to why people believe the things that they do, slowing down and not reacting right away, and making a place for stillness every single day. I think if you start doing those things, it's going to provide peace in your heart. It's going to make peace in your family, and that also can spread to your community and even the world. It feels like a tall order, but I know that Jesus Christ cares about peace in our hearts and in our world, and He wants to help us get there. He's constantly encouraging us, "Blessed are the peacemakers, you are my children." And so we don't have to just take things the way they are. We don't have to live in this crazy, frenzied, hustled world. We can actively work to create peace and make the world a better place. I'd love to hear what kinds of things you do to create peace in your life. Thanks for watching, and I'm excited to see you next time.